Men, 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 men.
That chant opened the doors to the wildest beach house in Malibu. For years, Charlie's charm and Alan's neurosis created a chemistry that was unmatched on TV. We watched Jake grow up alongside our own kids, and we loved Berta, the true soul of the show. But behind the laughter lay a quiet tragedy. We witnessed a public breakdown that split a fan base and mourned the devastating loss of the woman who cleaned up the mess. Tonight we look past the scandals to honor the legends who made us laugh. Jon Cryer as Alan Harper. Long before he was the ultimate mooch on the Malibu coast, Jon Cryer was already a face etched into the nostalgia of the 1980s. Born in the spring of 1965, he was raised in the very heart of show business, the son of actors who understood the precarious nature of fame. He first captured American hearts as Ducky in Pretty in Pink, a role that defined the lovable underdog for a generation. By the time he stepped onto the set of 2.5 Men, he was 38 years old, a seasoned professional looking for the role that would allow him to shed his teen idol past and embrace a more mature, albeit chaotic, comedic persona. As Alan Harper Cryer delivered a masterclass in physical comedy and self-deprecation. He was the perfect foil to his brother's effortless cool, playing the uptight, cheap, and perpetually unlucky chiropractor with a neurotic energy that glued the series together. Audiences didn't just laugh at Alan. They felt a strange mixture of pity and affection for him. Cryer's ability to take a punchline sometimes literally earned him 2 Primetime Emmy Awards. While the show around him often descended into madness, his performance remained a steady, hilarious constant, proving that playing the straight man required a twisted genius of its own. While Alan Harper's life was a comedic disaster, Cryer's real life carried its own heavy burdens. Behind the scenes, he navigated a tumultuous personal landscape. He married actress Sarah Trigger in 1999, but the union dissolved into a difficult divorce in 2004, right as the show was finding its footing. The quiet, professional Cryer often found himself as the sane center of a hurricane, particularly as his co-star's personal life began to unravel publicly. He had to show up to work, deliver the jokes, and maintain the show's integrity while the world outside speculated on its implosion. It was a test of endurance and grace, requiring him to balance the joy of his professional success with the stress of maintaining stability for his family, including his son Charlie Austin and his adopted daughter Daisy. Life after the beach house has been a testament to reinvention and resilience for Cryer. He refused to fade into the background or let the sitcom define him forever. He took a dark, fascinating turn into the world of superheroes, shocking fans with a chilling portrayal of Lex Luthor in Supergirl. He also penned his memoir, So That Happened, offering a dignified look behind the curtain of his wildest years. Today, he has found the stability that always eluded his character Alan. Happily married to Lisa Joyner since 2007, he enjoys a life that is peaceful and productive. At 60 years old, Jon Cryer stands as a survivor of Hollywood's most volatile eras. He proved that nice guys don't always finish last. Sometimes they outlast everyone else, keeping their dignity intact while the world watches. Charlie Sheen as Charlie Harper, born Carlos Erwin Estevez in September of 1965. Charlie Sheen was Hollywood royalty from his first breath. The son of the legendary Martin Sheen, he possessed a natural charisma that the camera loved instantly. By the time the show launched in 2003, he was 38 years old and already a veteran of acclaimed films like Platoon and Wall Street. He arrived at the sitcom not as an auditioning actor, but as a movie star looking for a new conquest. The role was tailored specifically to his public persona, a womanizing, drinking, carefree bachelor. It was a casting choice that felt less like acting and more like a documentary of his own wildlife. For 8 seasons, Charlie Sheen was the magnetic north of the series. His portrayal of Charlie Harper was effortless, oozing a charm that made his morally questionable behavior seem lovable. He was the cool uncle, the rich brother, the guy who always won without trying. America tuned in by the millions not just for the jokes, but for the swagger. He carried the show on his back, making the bowling shirt a fashion statement, and turning the jingle-writing bachelor into an icon of American television. His comedic timing was relaxed and brilliant, creating a chemistry with Cryer that has rarely been matched since. However, the demons that fueled his character eventually consumed the man. Sheen's life became a tragic cycle of substance abuse and public meltdowns. From accidentally shooting a fiancée in the arm in the 90s to the chaotic dissolution of his marriage to Denise Richards, his pain was always public. The darkness deepened with domestic violence arrests and the loss of custody of his children. The Tiger Blood era of 2011 was not just a media spectacle. It was a cry for help from a man unraveling. Perhaps his most vulnerable moment came in 2015 when he revealed he was HIV positive, a diagnosis that forced a sobering reality check on his invincible public image and changed the conversation around the virus. The road back from the edge has been long and winding. After the firestorm of his departure from the show, Sheen continued to work appearing in projects like Anger Management and the recent series Bookie. But the wild partying has largely been replaced by a more reflective existence. A documentary released in late 2025, Who is Charlie, peeled back the layers of his mythology, showing a man trying to make peace with his past. He has sought sobriety and reconnected with parts of himself that were lost in the noise of his fame. Now 60 years old, Charlie Sheen remains a complex figure of talent and turmoil. He is a reminder that talent is a gift, but peace is a discipline, and he is still writing the final chapters of his own redemption story. Angus T. Jones as Jake Harper. Born in the autumn of 1993, Angus T. Jones was just a regular child with a cherubic face when destiny came calling. He was only 10 years old when he was cast as Jake Harper, the dim-witted but adorable nephew. Unlike his adult co-stars, he didn't have a lifetime of experience to draw from. He was simply a child thrust into the highest-rated comedy on television. He spent his formative years on a soundstage his childhood captured in 22-minute intervals for the world to see. In the early seasons, Jones was the show's secret weapon. His deadpan delivery and innocent questions cut through the adult cynicism of the Harper household. Audiences watched him transform from a cute, chubby-cheeked boy into a teenager navigating the awkwardness of puberty. He wasn't just a prop. He was the heart of the family dynamic, often being the only one who could outsmart his uncle and father simply by being oblivious. He became the highest-paid child actor on television, a testament to how essential he was to the trio's chemistry. But growing up in the spotlight takes a toll that money cannot fix. As he transitioned into adulthood, Jones found himself at odds with the adult themes of the show. In a shocking turn of events in 2012, he found a deep connection to his faith as a Seventh-day Adventist and publicly denounced the show as filth, urging viewers to turn it off. It was a moment of profound internal conflict, a young man biting the hand that fed him because his soul was starving for something else. He felt hypocritical performing in a show that conflicted with his newfound moral compass, leading to his eventual departure and a retreat from the public eye. After leaving the sitcom world, Jones did what few child stars managed to do. He disappeared into a normal life. He stepped away from the cameras to attend college and explore his spirituality without an audience. He grew a beard, abandoned the Jake Harper persona, and worked with production companies like Tonite to stay creative but on his own terms. He briefly dipped his toe back into acting for niche projects, but largely he chose anonymity over adulation. Today, at 32 years old, Angus T. Jones is a man who chose his own peace over a paycheck. His legacy is one of courage, the boy who walked away from the biggest show on earth to save his own soul. Ashton Kutcher as Walden Schmidt. Christopher Ashton Kutcher was born in the winter of 1978 in Iowa, far from the glitz of Hollywood. His early life was marked by the trauma of his fraternal twin brother's heart transplant and cerebral palsy, grounding him in reality long before he found fame. By 2003, he was already a star from That 70s Show. But when he joined 2.5 Men in 2011 to replace Charlie Sheen, he was 33 years old, though he would have been 25 when the show originally premiered. He took on the impossible task of filling the shoes of the show's original lead, bringing a different energy to the Malibu beach house. Kutcher played Walden Schmidt, an internet billionaire with the emotional maturity of a teenager. He didn't try to be Charlie Harper. Instead, he played a character who was sweet, naive, and hopelessly romantic. His arrival shifted the tone of the show from cynical debauchery to something slightly warmer. Kutcher's physical comedy and willingness to look foolish won over a skeptical audience. He revitalized the series, keeping the lights on in Malibu for 4 more successful seasons and proving that the show could evolve. While he played a lovelorn billionaire, Kutcher's real life saw the disintegration of his high-profile marriage to Demi Moore. He lived under the constant scrutiny of the paparazzi, his every move analyzed. More recently, he faced a terrifying health battle that he kept private for years. In 2022, he revealed a diagnosis of vasculitis, a rare autoimmune disorder that temporarily robbed him of his vision, hearing, and ability to walk. It was a humbling reminder of fragility for a man known for his youthful vitality. He had to learn to see and hear again, a struggle that reshaped his perspective on life and success. Today, Kutcher has transcended acting to become a titan of the tech world. He is a serious investor with sound business acumen, co-founding venture capital firms that have shaped the modern economy. Yet his most cherished role is that of a father and husband to Mila Kunis, his former co-star turned life partner. He dedicates himself to fighting human trafficking and advocating for children, using his platform for profound good. At 47 years old, Ashton Kutcher is no longer just a sitcom star. He is a survivor and a visionary, a man who took a broken show and helped it finish its race while building a life of purpose beyond the screen. Conchata Ferrell as Berta. Conchata Galen Ferrell was born in the spring of 1943 in West Virginia. A veteran of the stage and screen, she had been working steadily for decades before she ever put on a housekeeper's apron. When the show premiered, she was 60 years old, bringing a lifetime of experience and a sharp, no-nonsense attitude that the producers immediately fell in love with. Originally intended to be a recurring character, her presence was so commanding that she became a permanent fixture of the Harper household. Berta was the audience surrogate, the one person who looked at the absurdity of the Harpers' lives and rolled her eyes. Ferrell played her with a perfect blend of sarcasm and hidden warmth. She wasn't just the help. She was the matriarch in a house full of overgrown boys. Her delivery of a simple, "I ain't cleaning that up," could bring the house down. She earned 2 Emmy nominations for the role, proving that a supporting character could steal every scene she was in. She was the grounding force that kept the show's balloon from floating away entirely. Despite the laughter she generated, Ferrell's final years were marked by a difficult battle with her own body. In December 2019, she suffered a life-changing kidney infection that cascaded into severe health issues. The woman who was so strong on screen spent her final months fighting for breath, placed on a respirator and ventilator after a heart attack. It was a painful, slow decline for a woman who had always projected such unshakable strength. She fought hard, just as Berta would have, but the physical toll was eventually too great to overcome. The beach house went dark for Conchata Ferrell on October 12, 2020. Her passing left a void in the comedy world that cannot be filled. She didn't have a life after fame in the traditional sense, as she worked until her health failed her, giving everything she had to her craft, dying at the age of 77 years old. Conchata Ferrell left behind a legacy of laughter. She taught us that you don't need to be the lead on the poster to be the star of the show. She was the soul of the house, and without her, it's just a building. Clarke Duncan as Jerome. Born in the winter of 1957 in Chicago, Clarke Duncan's path to Hollywood was paved with hard labor. He worked digging ditches and bouncing at clubs, using his immense size to protect others. He was 46 years old when the show aired, already an Academy Award nominee for his heartbreaking role in The Green Mile. He came to 2.5 Men not as a sitcom regular, but as a heavy-hitter guest star, bringing with him a cinematic gravity that few actors possess. In his guest appearance as Jerome, the overprotective father of a girl Jake was dating, Duncan used his imposing physique to hilarious effect. The comedy came from the contrast: a man who looked like he could crush a tank, yet possessed a deep, soulful voice and a protective fatherly instinct. He played the intimidating neighbor trope with a wink, showing his incredible range. He could be terrifying one second and utterly charming the next, holding his own against the show's regulars with ease. It was a reminder of his versatility. He wasn't just an action star. He was a gifted comedian. Behind the million-watt smile, Duncan's heart, so big in spirit, was physically fragile. In July 2012, just a few years after his appearance on the show, he suffered a massive myocardial infarction. The man who seemed indestructible was suddenly fighting for his life. He spent nearly 2 months in the hospital, never fully recovering from the initial attack. It was a shock to the world. The giant who had moved us to tears in the Green Mile and to laughter in Malibu was mortal after all. Michael Clarke. Duncan passed away on September 3, 2012. His now is a memory that continues to warm the hearts of those who watch his films. He didn't get the long retirement he deserved, nor the chance to grow old in the industry that loved him. He left us far too soon at the age of 54 years old. His legacy is one of kindness wrapped in strength. Even in a brief sitcom cameo, his light shone brightly, reminding us that there are no small roles, only big spirits. Eddie Van Halen as himself. Edward Lodewijk Van Halen was born in 1955, a musical prodigy who redefined what was possible on the electric guitar. By the time 2.5 Men premiered, he was already a living legend, 48 years old, and a survivor of the wildest eras of rock and roll. He wasn't an actor. He was an icon. His appearance on the show wasn't about a career change. It was a favor, a moment of surreal fun, where a global superstar stepped into a sitcom living room. His cameo was brief, but legendary. In a single scene, he walked out of the bathroom with his guitar, played a mind-melting riff, and casually mentioned he was just passing through. It was a meta-joke about the show's chaotic universe. Of course, Eddie Van Halen would be at Charlie Harper's house. He didn't need to speak many lines. His guitar did the talking. It remains one of the most memorable celebrity cameos in television history, capturing the reckless, cool energy that the show aspired to embody. But the man who made the guitar sing was fighting a silent, brutal war within his own body. For years, Eddie battled cancer, a consequence of a life lived hard and fast. He endured the removal of part of his tongue in 2000 and later faced throat cancer that spread. He quietly underwent treatments while continuing to tour and perform, hiding the severity of his condition from the public. The stroke and pneumonia that eventually claimed him were the final blows in a decades-long struggle with his health. The music stopped on October 6, 2020. Eddie Van Halen's death sent a shockwave through the world, silencing one of the greatest instruments in history. He didn't fade away. He burned out after giving everything to his art. Dying at 65 years old, Eddie Van Halen left a void that silence cannot fill. His brief moment on the show serves as a time capsule, a snapshot of a legend having a laugh, reminding us that even gods need to use the restroom sometimes. Martin Mull as Russell the Pharmacist. Martin Eugene Mull was born in the summer of 1943. Before he was an actor, he was a painter and a musician, an artist with a skewed view of the world. He was 60 years old when the show began, bringing with him a cult following from Roseanne and Fernwood Tonight. He was the master of the deadpan delivery, a man who could say the most ridiculous things with a completely straight face. He fit into the cynical world of 2.5 Men as if he had been born there. As Russell Charlie's morally bankrupt pharmacist, Mull was a scene stealer. He played a man who was arguably more dysfunctional than the Harpers, dealing illicit substances from behind a counter with a weary, drug-addled grin. He wasn't a main character, yet he built a fully realized world in his short scenes. He represented the seedy, hilarious underbelly of Charlie's lifestyle. Mull's comedic timing was impeccable, turning a minor recurring role into a fan favorite simply by refusing to blink at the absurdity around him. While he played characters who were often adrift, Mull's real life was one of artistic discipline. The struggle for him wasn't scandal, but the quiet battle of being a character actor, always the guest, rarely the hero. He faced the industry's tendency to pigeonhole him as the sarcastic sidekick, fighting to maintain his identity as a serious painter in a world that only saw him as a comedian. Aging in Hollywood is a silent pain, a slow erasure that he combated by simply continuing to work, refusing to be pushed aside. Today, Mull is one of the last statesmen of his generation of comedy. He has not slowed down appearing in shows like The Ranch and Arrested Development well into his later years. Beyond the screen, he continues to paint his artwork, hanging in prestigious galleries, a second career that gives him a voice beyond the script. At 82 years old, Martin Mull is a testament to longevity. He proved that you can be funny, artistic, and weird, and if you stick around long enough, you become a legend. James Earl Jones as himself. Born in early 1931, James Earl Jones overcame a debilitating childhood stutter to possess the most recognizable voice in human history. By 2003, he was 72 years old, a titan of stage and screen known as Darth Vader and Mufasa. His presence in any project brought an immediate sense of importance. He didn't need a sitcom. The sitcom needed him. He agreed to appear in 2.5 Men as a presiding figure at a funeral, bringing the weight of the universe to a comedy bit. In his appearance, Jones played himself officiating a fake funeral for Charlie Harper. The comedy lay in the juxtaposition, the voice of kings and villains reading a eulogy for a womanizing jingle writer. He treated the absurd script with Shakespearean dignity, which only made it funnier. It was a brief moment, but it elevated the episode, reminding the audience that even in a lowbrow comedy, there was room for high art. He was the ultimate straight man, his deep baritone cutting through the nonsense. The pain of James Earl Jones was always the fear of silence. The boy who couldn't speak grew into the man everyone wanted to hear, but age eventually comes for even the greatest gifts. As he moved into his 90s, the voice that commanded empires began to soften. He faced the heartbreaking reality of stepping away from the roles he defined, eventually signing over the rights to his voice for AI recreation because he could no longer perform them himself. It was the quiet surrender of a warrior to the passage of time. Now, in the winter of 2025, James Earl Jones lives in quiet retirement. He has retreated from the public eye, resting after a career that spanned 7 decades. He is no longer on stage, but his voice remains woven into the fabric of American culture, immortal and undying. At 94 years old, he is a living monument. He touched the world of 2.5 Men briefly, but his shadow covers the entire history of modern entertainment. Carl Reiner as Marty Pepper. Born in 1922, Carl Reiner was shaping television before the other cast members were even born. A World War II veteran and the creator of The Dick Van Dyke Show, he was 81 years old when the series began. He was true Hollywood royalty, a man who had seen it all. Casting him as Evelyn Harper's much older boyfriend was a stroke of genius. It wasn't stunt casting. It was a tribute. He brought a history of laughter that stretched back to the golden age of radio. As Marty Pepper, Reiner was electric. He played a wealthy, slightly senile but sharp-tongued television producer. He went toe-to-toe with the cast, matching them beat for beat. Watching him on screen was watching a master at work. His timing hadn't lost a millisecond in 60 years. He didn't just recite lines, he inhabited the joy of performance. He was living proof that comedy keeps you young, flirting with Holland Taylor on screen with a twinkle in his eye that defied his age. The twilight of Reiner's life was marked by the loss of his beloved wife Estelle in 2008. They had been married for 64 years. Losing her was a heartbreak that no amount of applause could heal. He spent his final years as a widower, keeping his mind sharp by writing books and tweeting daily, but the absence of his partner was a silence in his home. He navigated the loneliness of extreme old age with grace, relying on his best friend Mel Brooks for companionship in the evenings of his life. Carl Reiner passed away on June 29, 2020. He died as he lived funny, sharp, and surrounded by family. He didn't suffer a long, tragic decline, he simply finished his script. Dying at the incredible age of 98 years old, Carl Reiner left behind a blueprint for a life well lived. His time on 2.5 Men was a victory lap, a final wink from a man who helped invent the very medium they were standing on. Harry Dean Stanton as himself. Harry Dean Stanton was born in the summer of 1926. A Navy veteran of World War II, he had a face that looked like a map of hard roads and long nights. He was 77 years old when the show premiered. A favorite of critics and cult film lovers, he was known for saying more with a stare than most actors could with a monologue. He was brought onto the show as part of Charlie's support group, a collection of Hollywood veterans playing themselves. Stanton didn't need to act, he just needed to be. Sitting in a circle with Sean Penn and Elvis Costello holding a cigar and a drink, he embodied the quintessential cool old guy. His role was often to sit in silence while Charlie ranted, only to deliver a single devastating line that cut to the core of the issue. He brought a strange, beautiful melancholy to the sitcom. He was the ghost of Hollywood past, sitting on a couch in Malibu, reminding everyone that cool is not something you try to be, it's something you are. Stanton's life was solitary. He never married, admitting that he had a phobia of commitment, a trait he shared with the fictional Charlie Harper. He lived a life of artistic purity, but personal isolation. The hidden pain of Harry Dean Stanton was the loneliness of the drifter, the man who could connect with millions through a screen but struggled to hold on to people in real life. He was a heartbreaking figure, a man who sang sad songs and lived in the smoke of his own cigarettes. On September 15, 2017, the drifter finally stopped moving. He died peacefully at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. He worked until the very end, leaving behind a filmography that is studied in acting schools around the world. Dying at 91 years old, Harry Dean Stanton remains an enigma. His presence on the show was a gift of gravitas, a reminder that underneath the jokes, life is serious, beautiful, and fleeting. Georgia Engel as Jean, Georgia Bright. Engel was born in 1948, bursting onto the scene as the angelic Georgette on the Mary Tyler Moore Show. By 2003, she was 55 years old, her unique, breathy voice instantly recognizable to anyone who grew up watching TV in the 70s. She was cast in the later seasons of 2.5 Men as Jean, the mother of Alan's girlfriend, bringing a different kind of comedy to the show, one based on sweetness rather than sarcasm. Jean was the innocent grandmother figure who unknowingly walked into situations filled with innuendo. Engel played her with a wide-eyed wonder that was hilarious in its purity. She formed an unlikely and delightful on-screen romance with the character played by Reiner. Their scenes were tender and funny, proving that romance and comedy weren't just for the young. She was the sugar that helped the medicine go down, a gentle presence that balanced the show's harder edges. Behind the gentle voice lay a woman of fierce conviction. Engel was a devout Christian Scientist, a faith that guides its followers to rely on prayer rather than medicine for healing. This belief system became the central tragedy of her end. When illness struck, she did not seek medical intervention. Her hidden pain was quite literally hidden. She suffered in private, adhering to her faith even as her body began to fail. It was a quiet, private struggle that the public only learned of after she was gone. Georgia Engel passed away on April 12, 2019. Her death was shrouded in the mystery of her privacy, a quiet exit for a woman who never sought the limelight, only the light. She died at 70 years old. Her legacy is one of gentleness. In a show famous for its raunchy humor, she remained a lady, proving that kindness is a comedic superpower all its own. The piano lid is closed and the bowling shirts are hung up. Standing here in late 2025, the debate over Charlie versus Ashton fades into silence. What remains is the heartbreaking absence of Berta and the Titans like Eddie Van Halen and James Earl Jones who graced that set. They taught us that while men may come and go, the memories of a family, however dysfunctional, last forever. Goodbye, Malibu. You were a hell of a ride.